Well, you can't really fly a helicopter if you can't see through the windscreen, and so that's what we'll be doing today, installing that windscreen. I opted for a tinted, slightly thicker windscreen. It's made out of plexiglass and comes to you wrapped up and rough cut slightly larger than what you actually need to put it on the helicopter. So the first step is to get the plexiglass trimmed to size. Now you want to do this while the actual fuselage still has that fiberglass section built into it. That's going to prevent any of this from distorting and messing everything up. And you also want to make sure you don't have the boom on the helicopter, because that weight in the back can also distort the fuselage and get you all screwed up as well. I'm going to get the windscreen unpacked, placed onto the helicopter, and then we're going to secure it there with a whole bunch of tape to make sure it doesn't move. And we'll start marking the trim line that we'll have to get this thing cut out to. Well, after getting it on here, it's actually a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, but I still need to take anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch across the entire perimeter of the windscreen. And some of that is actually the fact that it's not, the original cut isn't perpendicular to the surface. So there's a little bit of like a draft angle there that needs to get taken off it as well. It's also going to be a little difficult to tell where exactly that line needs to be. So I think this is going to be a whole lot of trim and then fit and then trim and fit and trim and fit until it actually fits the way I want it to. And to at least attempt to get the windscreen placed back to the fuselage consistently every time, I put a piece of blue tape down here, struck a line with a Sharpie, and did that in a couple different locations to give me something to reference as I get this thing on and off. And what you should be asking yourself is, how do you trim 1/8 to 1/4 inch off the edge of plexiglass? And that's where a cheap belt sander in a vise comes into play. I'm not actually sure how well this is going to work, but other people have said that this works fairly well, so we're going to give this thing a shot. After a whole bunch of trimming and fitting, I think the windscreen is finally trimmed close enough, or at least close enough for my liking. And now that I've done it and kind of have an idea of how this is going to shake out, I'm going to share that recipe with you guys just in case anyone is going to follow along. First of all, definitely put down some tape or something on the top of this fiberglass, especially on the seam. I accidentally got a few scratches on the windscreen on the inside. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but definitely put down some insurance. The belt sander worked great for initial and like bulk trimming. I found that it worked extremely well on the longer edges, but it did not suit very well for the complex geometry at the end. For that, I used my favorite tool in the shop, an angle grinder and a sanding disc. That seemed to do really good work. Also, I initially thought I was going to leave the edge kind of perpendicular to the surface, the outer surface. I changed my mind. I ended up putting a pretty significant undercut that almost matches this radius between where the windscreen will go and the flat edge, and then this outer portion. It kind of fits into that radius really nicely, and I think it gives a clean look. It's also extra material, so if I change my mind later, I can go ahead and just remove that material back. Once the shape was nearly perfect, I used a foam block with 80 grit sandpaper to basically flatten out and polish out the rest of the edge and make everything really uniform. I've got the windscreen back on the helicopter. It's pulled tight with all these radial strips of tape. I've also gone around the entire perimeter with 2-inch tape, and then I used my caliper to set in and scribe a 1/2 inch offset where my bolt circle is going to go. After that, I followed up with a 2-inch spacing center to center for all my holes that I need to drill. And then I'm going to be drilling all these with special 1/8" acrylic drill bits. These are designed to not grab and crack the acrylic because that would be a really bad day. I'm going to start by drilling my first couple holes somewhere here in the middle of the windscreen. I'll then backfill that with some Clecos to hold it in place, and then I'll probably start walking up and down kind of in a symmetrical fashion to get this whole windscreen to kind of set into place and not bunch up and deform if you were to just kind of go all over the place. And there it is. The windscreen is installed. Everything went as planned, which is a good thing. That acrylic drill worked perfect, so nothing cracked. The next step is to pull this back off and get ready to cut out the actual fiberglass underneath this thing so this windshield can actually do windshield things. The instructions say to cut this section out, leaving a 3/4" lip for that windscreen to sit on. And so the best way that I've ever seen to mark a contour is to actually use a washer that is whatever dimension you're looking for, and then use your pen to ride along inside of that. And since I didn't have a 1.5" washer, I went ahead and catted one up and printed one out. And I also saw Engine Easy. If you haven't followed him, you should definitely go check it out. He made something recently where he made the center section fit a Sharpie. So I basically copied him, and a Sharpie goes into the middle of my tall washer, and I can run this washer with my Sharpie in the middle along the edge of this entire area, and I'll get a perfectly offset 3/4" line that I can then reference when I'm cutting this out with my Chigga Chigga. And there it is. The test fit is complete. I'm really happy with how it turned out. All the edges turned out really, really nice. And having this window in there actually makes the helicopter look a whole lot better. It feels like this thing is finally coming together. But we're not done yet. We still have to put in a black edge around the entire perimeter of that windscreen. And that's going to give it the final polished look. I used a strip of 1" masking tape around the perimeter to give me that offset that I'm looking for to lay in the next 1" strip of masking tape that will actually use to mask the surface for painting. From there, I pulled off the original 1", exposing the surface of the plastic. I sanded that down with 400 grit sandpaper, masked off the rest of the interior of the window for overspray. I then sprayed in 4 very thin coats of semi-gloss black spray paint and let it tack up for about 10 minutes between each coat. I let that dry overnight, and here we have it, a completely finished windscreen with that black strip around the perimeter. I'm not quite ready to install this thing permanently, but when I do, I have some 16th weather stripping that I'll put between the windscreen and the fuselage to prevent from any chafing or anything like that. But for now, I'm going to pull this thing off, wrap it up nice and neat, and store it somewhere where it won't get damaged. My engine kit and rotor blades are officially on a truck on its way to me, and from here on out we're going to make the transition from doing a whole bunch of body work to actually working with metal parts and making this thing a functional helicopter. I also have a pretty, lofty goal. I'd like to make it to 10,000 subscribers before Oshkosh, which is in the end of July. So if you could do me a favor and hit subscribe, share this video, help me get there, I'd be super appreciative. You guys might see some shorter videos like this one come out in the future. That's just because I want to make sure that I complete a task start to finish, and some of them just are going to take less amount of time. But don't worry, that probably means I will do more frequent uploads, and I will, as always, try to do my best to make as long format as I can, because that's what you guys enjoy. As always, go build something cool, never stop learning, and I'll see you on the next one.